The Oregon Ducks can win the national championship because they are the nation's best team. They have one of the best rosters in college football, if not the best roster in college football. And even with many people talking about how their seeding positions them in a non-advantageous way, I think that the Ducks have faced many challenges this season, and they have overcame them all. And right now, I would say power ratings-wise or strength of record-wise, doesn't really matter. They're the best team in the nation, the Oregon Ducks are. The identity of this team, let's start there, because I think that when you're competing for a national championship, you need a concrete, solid identity, reinforced with steel bars, reinforced with steel. The teams that win it all have an identity that is constructed with the strength of a bunker, with a bunker that can withstand a nuclear blast. Think about Michigan last year, losing a player like Zach Zinner, or think about Ohio State in 2014, losing their starting QB in the preseason, and then their starting QB from the regular season at the end of the regular season, and winning it all with their third-string quarterback. Think about Alabama switching from Jalen Hurts to Tua Tagovailoa in the 2017 national championship game. The teams that win it all withstand nuclear blasts because their identities are that strong. What Oregon's identity is they are physical. They are veteran-laden. They have an NFL roster full of future professional players. And I think a good saying that expresses who Oregon is they just throw the kitchen sink at them. Whatever they have, whatever is in their tool belt, they will use. They will leave nothing to waste to win the game that is in front of them. And they take things one step at a time. They are well coached. They are disciplined. They tackle well. They pursue well. They are athletic. They are explosive. They are strong. Oregon's the best team in the country. What else can I say? And a huge part of it is because their identity and their culture is that strong. They made the right moves in the preseason. They're making the right moves now. They make good decisions both on the field and off the field. They scheme well. Their players are some of the best in the country. They are deep, and they don't have very many, if any, weaknesses. You see that NA right there under the title Oregon's weaknesses? That's not applicable. Potentially, the rushing defense could be a problem. They're 51st right now in opponent yards per carry. That's mainly because Penn State ran for close to 300 yards and almost 9 yards per carry, though. And remember, they played Ashton Jeanty. They played Ohio State when Josh Simmons was healthy for about a quarter or two, and his backup still did well in that game. So they faced, Travion Henderson and Quinjon Judkins with a better supporting cast than what they've had for much of the year. They played Wisconsin. They played Michigan on the road. They played Jonah Coleman of Washington and completely limited him. They played Oregon State, who has a good rushing offense. They faced a lot of good rushing offenses. So I don't know if their rushing offense is exactly a weakness. I think it's a weak link of the team. Their rushing defense is a weak link. Their rushing offense does also have some inconsistencies to them, but I wouldn't say that's a weakness. But the rushing defense is just a potential weakness because there are other moments where I've seen it just step up and perform at a high level. Another possible weakness is limited upside. This is something that I've talked about with Oregon before. I don't know if they have a player who can carry them in a game single-handedly. Penn State has Tyler Warren. Ohio State has Jeremiah Smith. They have Caleb Downs on defense. Penn State has Abdul Carter on defense. You look at, for example, Brock Bowers from Georgia last year. Michigan has Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant on the interior of that D-line that really help out a linebacker group and a DB group that have struggled all season long. Nebraska was hoping that Dylan Raiola would be an alien this year. Iowa's Cooper DeJean last year was an alien with what he was doing. I think Oregon may have those players, but they also may not. That may not matter, though, because Oregon is such a good team at so many things that I don't know if they will ever need a player to win a game for them single-handedly. Like, they won't need Dillon Gabriel to lead the team in rushing yards and at the same time to have a perfect game through the air in order to have just a chance at winning a football game. They won't need Jordan James to turn into Ashton Jeanty to have a chance at winning a game. So maybe my opinion that Oregon doesn't have the same type of alien players that Penn State or Ohio State does at certain positions, maybe that's skewed by the fact that Oregon has never been in a position where they are so desperate to the point where they are trying to rely on one player to win a game for them. Maybe I'm incorrect there, but I think it's more likely to be a bit of both rather than just one or the other. But those are just possible weaknesses. Those are not definite weaknesses. I don't think Oregon has any obvious weak points. They don't have any loopholes that the other team can use to totally negate Oregon's strengths. You have to just beat Oregon straight up. You can't really cheese your way into beating them. And by cheesing your way into winning, I don't mean that you don't deserve the win, but you're abusing a weakness of theirs and totally going around them. You can't go around Oregon. You have to go through Oregon. You have to puncture them. You can't just run around them. The strengths, on the other hand, for Oregon are, I would say, everything. Like coaching, quarterback play, running back play, wide receiver play, tight end play, offensive line play, D-line play, linebacker play, secondary play. And by strengths, of course, I mean nationally. Obviously, some of these rooms are weaker than other rooms, but in comparison to all of the FBS players and position groups, all of Oregon's groups are strong. They're deep, they have high upside, they have NFL players, they're athletic, and they're well coached. And there's everything to like about that. Oregon's a very easy team to root for because they're that good, and they're not arrogant, and they're not scummy, and they just work. They're hardworking, and they, like I said earlier in this video, they throw the kitchen sink at their opponents. And often what they do in those circumstances, often how they body blow people, is in their elite passing offense and also pass protection, where they really have a symbiotic relationship there. The tackles do well, the offensive line does well, and then Gabriel has time to throw or time to scramble, and that results in his high completion percentage. I mean, Gabriel right now, the Oregon Ducks QB, he had a 95.4 QBR, 4 touchdowns, averaged nearly 9 yards per attempt against Penn State. He has an 86.5 QBR, which is second nationally, 28 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He has passed for 3,558 yards on the year, and he's completing 73.2% of his passes with a 166.6 passer rating, 7 rushing touchdowns, 192 rushing yards. He's only been sacked 13 times this year. And that's Dillon Gabriel, Tez Johnson, Evan Stewart, Kenyon Sadiq, Terrance Ferguson, Traeshon Holden, even occasionally Noah Whittington or Jordan James at running back out of the backfield, and Ajani Cornelius, Josh Conerly Jr., and that offensive line all working together. And then I would also say that the defensive line, the linebacker room, and DB are key strong points too. I think really that Oregon's entire roster is full of strong points nationally. You don't just have areas where you are stronger, where you're like top 25 compared to the field. Oregon's entire roster, I think, is top 5 compared to the field. Position groups are top 15 or top 10. They're not just good players, they're great, near elite players. And I think that has built this efficiency monster that Oregon is playing with here right now, where, you go 13-0. You're the only undefeated team. You're the obvious number 1 seed. And even though you have a very hard path to the national title because you'll play winner of Tennessee, Ohio State, and then the winner of Texas Clemson, and then whoever wins that, the winner of whoever again wins Texas Clemson against Arizona State, and then you got to play whoever's in the other side of the bracket, you're still one of the favorites to win it all. In fact, depending on where the odds are, you may be the favorite to win it all, though I don't have the sports books in front of me, because Oregon is an elite team. And when you look at non-negotiables, areas where you could see alien players, or where the rooms are that deep and that strong to where if you're an opponent, you have to deal with this. This is why Oregon beat Penn State, because Penn State couldn't deal with the non-negotiable of Oregon's speed at wide receiver. They couldn't counteract that. They tried to go around it. They tried at times to also just go through it, to be the immovable object against the unstoppable force. But Oregon's wide receiver room showed against Penn State they are the unstoppable force, and Penn State's secondary is very much a movable object. Jodan James this year, he's a non-negotiable, could be an alien player. 1,455 all-purpose yards, 15 touchdowns. Tez Johnson at wide receiver, 866 receiving yards, 10 touchdowns. And Oregon also leads the Power 4 in sack percentage thanks to Ajani Cornelius and Josh Conerly Jr. at offensive tackle. Oregon can win the national championship because they have so much non-negotiables and so many X-factor players on offense, combined with an elite offensive coordinator and a defense that can get clutch stops, and I think is still a top 15 unit, could even be top 10 nationally. Remember, this is a down year in football. So Penn State and Oregon may have top 10 or even potentially, although I doubt this, top 5 defenses, but the sport is so unbalanced, and there's no GOAT caliber side of the football or team to where Oregon's defense can have a really bad day, or Penn State's defense can have a very bad day, and that happens because of the circumstances of this season, whether it's because of the portal, NIL, the fact that there were a lot of talented players, alien players, elite QBs, for example, that left for the NFL, that departed for the NFL after the 2023 season. Teams are going to have a hard time dealing with these running backs, receivers, with the offensive tackles. Oregon often struggled on the inside run against Penn State, but Jodan James had such perimeter speed and patience, and Oregon's offensive tackles were so good that when he ran to the outside, he very often picked up at minimum 5 yards, if not 10, 15, sometimes even more than that. Teams will have a hard time stopping the explosiveness of this team, and an even harder time getting pressure on Dillon Gabriel, which again, circle back, means the receivers have more time to run their routes. Gabriel has time to comfortably read the defense, to go through his progressions. And against Penn State, who has talent on defense, there was someone open all the time. And it was basically the same thing against Ohio State. And Ohio State, I think, is the nation's best defense. So Texas, you're not safe. You're not safe from Oregon's offense. And Oregon's defense is good enough to hold your struggling offense in check. If Oregon matches up with Penn State again, it's potentially the same story as yesterday, where it's a high-scoring game. Penn State can win, but Oregon is just that much better in some matchups to where they'll beat you. As for Georgia, good luck scoring on this defense consistently with the backup QB if Beck's injury is that serious, and it looks like it. And Georgia's passing defense all season long has been questionable. How is Oregon going to do against that passing defense? Probably pretty good. So I think you get the picture that these non-negotiables for Oregon and how they're playing football helps them in their national title quest and their quest for being the nation's #1 team. And at this point, if you're going to win the national title, you'll be the first team in college football playoff history and college football history to go 16-0. What a job by Dan Lanning so far, and I expect that there are bigger and better things to come for the Oregon Ducks. Not just in the future, like far future, but in the immediate near future, as in this season. Some X-factor players to talk about on offense, and then we'll move on to the defense here. Quarterback Dillon Gabriel, running back Jodan James, wide receivers Tez Johnson and Evan Stewart, tight end Terrance Ferguson, and tackles Josh Conerly Jr. and Ajani Cornelius. I thought that Nishad Strother had some good plays yesterday. Kenyon Sadiq with that amazing hurdle for a touchdown was also an impressive player. And I think that Noah Whittington when healthy, can provide a good boost and can be a good complement to Jodan James and a good substitution for him as well when you have to rest him. And obviously, Traeshon Holden at wide receiver is a good player as well. And Oregon just is so deep on the offensive side of the ball. They're so good, accurate, precise, quick striking, have excellent acceleration. This is one of college football's best offenses. And dare I say, because they have played better defenses than Miami, I think at peak capacity, this is college football's best offense. Looking at the defense here, I think that Derrick Harmon, even though he had a pretty quiet day yesterday, is still an X-Factor player. I just think that Penn State is that good on the offensive line. Matayo Uiagaleleli and Jodan Burch at defensive end, also X-Factor players. Not aliens. I don't think they're as good as Abdul Carter, but they're good. They're players that most teams in the college football playoff are going to have issues with. Penn State has one of the better offensive lines in the nation. Potentially, after yesterday, they could have the nation's best offensive line. So, no shame in the performance on the defensive line from Oregon yesterday. It's got to improve. Same with what happened at linebacker, but they're X-Factor players. Same thing with Bryce Betcher, who's had a phenomenal season. Nikko Reed at corner and cornerback Jabbar Muhammad, I think, are X-Factor players as well. This is a talented defense. It's a defense that's well coached. They are deep, disciplined. They have explosiveness, and they're very physical. Same thing as the offense. They're not as good as the offense, but they're still a great unit nationally. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and also hit that notification bell so that way you can get notified when new content from College Football with Sam drops. I appreciate you very much, and also share the video around to others who you know enjoy the sport of college football and love it as I do and as you do, and comment your thoughts down below so that we can have a conversation, because I want to know what you are thinking. And join our Discord server where we talk college football 24/7 via the link in the description or down below in the pinned comment. Thank you to my Heisman Patreon members, Crash2488, Brasco Rascal, and Connell OH. Thank you to my All-American Patreon members, Chris Lane, Ismar, and Tyler Nye. And thank you to my All-Conference members, John Lynn, Roaming Gnome, Matthew Sale, Austin Christmas, Joshua Jorgensen, and Will Loftus. Make sure to check out my merchandise store and or Patreon page, or super chat down in the comment section below to support the channel. The Patreon page and merchandise store links are in the description or down below in the pinned comment. I hope you have a wonderful day. It is December, so Merry Christmas and also Happy New Year. I will see you guys soon.